Hey, Strong Girls. I'm Molly Herford, sports journalist, ultra runner, cyclist, and author, and founder of Strong Girl Publishing.
And I'm Dr. Sasha Golish, Executive Director of Yellow Running Shoes, a researcher, engineer, elite runner, and your BFF who's breaking down the science of smashing barriers in women's sports.
Think of us as the intersection of science and culture for women and girls in sport. Each week, we'll dissect the latest headlines and cutting-edge research on female athletes.
Debunk myths about girls in sport. Talk about how hormones affect performance at every age, to the latest research in sports science around mental performance, nutrition, equipment, and so much more.
And we'll spotlight badass girls and women who are rewriting the rules of the game, sometimes literally.
Expect it to be nerdy.
And occasionally TMI.
But it will always be honest.
Whether you're a strong girl yourself or you're raising one, this show is for you. Welcome to Strong Girl Talk,
where sports science meets sisterhood.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Strong Girl Talk, here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Sasha Golish. Sasha, how is it going?
Molly, it's great. Just got back from giving a keynote. I'm apologizing to the whole world. Molly, I was late again. It's terrible. But I want to say thank you for all the support in writing this keynote. I thanked you in the keynote. It was all about collaboration. And I am so thankful for this collaborative process that we've been going down together. And yeah, how are you?
Exactly in agreement with you, other than the fact that I did not give a keynote, but we texted after last week's episode where we were both just like, oh my God, this was what we needed to be doing today. Like sitting and recording these chats with you is just, it's so life-giving. So I hope for our listeners that it is equally life-affirming. I know earlier in this week we had our emergency episode, our first emergency episode, which I know was a little heavy, and I think we want to highlight the realities of where we are with women's sport and do it in, the most nuanced way that we know how. But I'm definitely glad that today we get back to some positive stuff, because that one was tough.
It was heavy. Yeah. It's good, right? You carry these heavy things with you in life, but you also carry these light things and these things that like fill you with joy, and it's that balance. So yeah, it's the collaboration it's the yin and the yang.
Exactly. Okay, highlights in sport. You have some fantastic notes on here. You're gonna have to catch me up on March Madness, because I'll be honest, we've been staying with friends and I've been watching Supercross for some reason. So like that's what they're into. So now I'm really into Supercross. So I'm a little behind on my women's sports.
Well, and actually terribly, like I don't actually know who is in the Final Four. So the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 wrapped up yesterday. My parents came over. My dad actually was like, I'm so happy you talked about this on the podcast. He's like, I'm super in to women's March Madness now. It's fantastic sport. So, I always want to like change one thing in the world. I changed one person. But what I did follow, and I think what's super cool, is they were reporting on how many follows that the players were getting through March Madness. And it was males and females. And 4 out of the top 5 were women. Paige Buckers, like this terrible, I can't say your name. Sorry, Paige. Number 1, she picked up 1.2 million followers in the last week as part of March Madness. Yeah, just super cool. And we're seeing the growth of women's sport, right? Like the model is here and the model is working. And it was just such a great reminder. And I watched a bit of the basketball on Friday night. I mean, I was making show notes. So I was like loosely watching, but it's great to watch.
I love that. It does. I will admit there is like some nervousness that I have around like the social media stuff, only because, NIL, the name, image, likeness, is such a big deal in the US right now. And I have to admit, like, part of me is very nervous for how this next generation of athletes is going to come up, and, just worries for their mental health as they're, at younger and younger and younger ages, forced to basically be professionals online. Like, I'm a millennial. I came of age with the internet. I came of age with like having a MySpace and a live journal and like some really embarrassing poetry on like some bad poetry forums. Like I lived it. I would not trade that experience for the world, because I was able to do it where no one was really watching. So I do have some like stress over young athletes getting these like what would you do if you had 1 million followers on Tuesday when you went to bed with like, you know, 10% of that on Monday, right?
It'd be overwhelming, and we know from the research, right? Like Kathy's research highlights, right, the negative connection between social media and mental health. There's some really interesting work coming out that you're talking about is like how do you change that relationship with social media and your mental health, and like how do you have it in a positive way? I mean, for me, the NIL stuff, the name, image and likeness, like I think it's going to spread a little bit of the wealth, although Donald Trump may have just like really hampered that in a way. But what I like about it is still the storytelling, right? And so, like let's other sport highlight like Michaela Schifrin's storytelling through alpine skiing has been fantastic, right? Like her mental health struggles, and I think she has a really good relationship with social media. So Michaela Schifrin won her 101st World Cup slalom, 101st World Cup the other day. It was her 63rd slalom. She is the most winningest athlete, like period, right? She won more than Ingemar Stenmark, who was sort of like put on a pedestal as like the person. And then on, in parallel with that, another like great person, like story to follow on social media is Lindsey Vonn. And like I grew up in an era coaching where, every young girl wanted to be Lindsey Vonn. And Lindsey Vonn is back on the podium, comes out of retirement. She's the first person over 40 to be on the podium. And, those powerful stories that they tell and how they inspire. And so, I think as we go through, it's really thinking about how do we make sure we promote the good stories on social media and help other people have better relationships as we storytell through social media too?
Totally, totally. And I do, I believe that as this NIL stuff comes up in colleges, I do have some hope, some faith, whatever you want to call it, that colleges will also start helping athletes navigate this situation better, because I think maybe actually professionalizing it more, making the NIL stuff a bigger deal, even in high school, you actually will have more student counselors, coaches, like all of that, that are even media experts that are actually coming in and helping young athletes, which I mean is a big part of why I started Strong Girl Publishing. It is to like help young athletes like own their story, tell their story in a way that's, honest for them, but is also done in a way that makes the most sense for their careers. Uh, so I think, yeah, I'm hoping that as long as we have support for the athletes in place, I think it can be a great thing. To your point, like, this is a great way to hopefully level the playing field a little bit, get a little more money in women's sports, as long as we can also, just keep an eye on the holistic, mental, everything, emotional health of the athlete while we're doing it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in my keynote this morning, like on collaboration, I talked about authenticity, right? And, I try to be very authentic on social media. You do too. You do it really well with Strong Girl Publishing in particular. Like those authentic stories about not just how athletes can relate, but how they should show up in the world, right? Like their stories, but their tools, right? That's really powerful, authentic storytelling. And I think it's continuing to do that. And so if you're feeling performative on social media, like I think that's like a good, like, wait, why am I posting this, right? Am I trying to share my story for me, or am I trying to be performative to check in and impress, or whatever that word might be for you, someone else on social media? And so like that's a good reminder to like think about it. Okay, good segue actually to Arena Sabalenka, who is very authentic and like amazingly authentic in interviews, post matches. So Sabalenka, she won the Miami Open. Tennis tournaments are changing a little bit. It's really cool to see gender equity moving forward and, equal pay, not just at the majors, but through the various tournaments. The tournaments are also becoming a little bit longer. So typically the majors, they're 2 weeks long, and then every other tournament was between 7 and 9 days. And it was just a lot for the athletes. And so the Miami Open, particularly we think about like female recovery is now, I think the tournament was 10 or 12 days, but it's longer than your typical week. And it gives the athletes a chance to recover. So Sabalenka won the women's tournament. And she's been really interesting to follow. Like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said she'd be the world number one. And her ability to then get control of her emotions and show up on the court. And then she's like come out to be this like powerful, like strong voice in women's sport. And what was super cool, and I mean, okay, I follow a lot of sports. Like, it's like, do I get any work done? Do I actually
I
do
don't know. I have no idea how you follow all of this and get anything done. And you are so prolific. It's ridiculous. So I'm in awe.
anything? But Sabalenka had the fastest forehand at the Australian Open. So she didn't have as much spin as her male counterparts, but she hits the ball hard. I would not like to be on the other side of the court when she hits the ball.
That's fair. As someone not into ball sports or not very good at ball sports, I also would not want to be there.
Hockey equipment, we'll just put you in hockey
Yeah,
equipment.
exactly. That'd be the safest way to do it for sure.
Okay, I didn't stay up and watch this because it was in San Capistrano, California. But it was the 10. So Sound Running is this like really cool like running company that like kind of came out during the pandemic to offer people a place to compete, but they really made it about the crowd and offering really good competition. So it was the 10 this weekend, which is stands for the 10,000, which is a 10-kilometer race on the track. It is 25 laps. I have done it once, and
Disgusting.
it was disgusting. Thank you, Natasha Wodak, for all of the support to get through the mental blocks of running a 10,000 on the track. So Elise Cranny won. Um, and it was fast. And I think what was really interesting for me is she didn't hit world championship standard, right? It was really, really fast. And she's 15 seconds off. And so, you know, going back to the conversation we had about Tuesday, like, are these standards actually set up that are going to inspire young girls to want to get in? Or have we set them so hard that it now is such a barrier that it becomes a block? But back to the positive. Congrats, Elise. Also a great person to follow on social media. Actually, great stories.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. And then before we get into cycling, you have one more PWHL note here. Hit us.
Okay, so I love that the PWHL season seems longer, which is great. But it's also the start of AFC. So the Northern Super League is coming. And so like AFC Toronto, I bought my shirt. Molly, it was affordable. Can we just, yeah, right? We talked about
Shock.
uniforms last week and like how unaffordable they are. So a Toronto Tempo shirt, like kind of seen them in the $80 range. My AFC Toronto shirt, $35.
You're kidding. Even like any shirt for $35 anymore. Like unheard of.
So I mean, they sold out very quickly. I'm great, but I loved that everybody in Toronto, like that's accessible for purchase. So now the one thing I'm a little bit concerned about because Canada, the Northern Super League gets underway April 16th in Vancouver, which could be okay. It gets underway in Toronto April 19th. I mean, it snowed here April 24th before. Hmm A little I'm very excited for this, but I just am also like Canada.
Yeah, it's a little touch and go for sure. Could be icy. Could be icy.
Yeah, we totally had an ice storm up at the cottage, speaking of which. But yes, it could be icy, snowy, haily, not like Haley the person, but like hailing.
Yes, yes. Very cold in general. Yeah, it's a bit of a crapshoot in Canada this time of year for sure. Now, could they? This is maybe like a dumb sport question of like someone who doesn't really know sports very well, or team sports anyway. I know other sports very well. Could they move it later? Like, why do they start so early?
I don't have any good answers to those questions. I mean, I think the men's soccer season is getting underway as well. There's I can't remember. I apologize to the US League that is fantastic that Christine Sinclair played for years with the Portland Roses. I think they get started around the same time. So I'm going to guess that it's just like trying to mirror that to make sure that the season is long enough, but they have enough recovery between games. Like it is, you can think it's physically demanding and mentally demanding to play a full football match.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
Cycling.
There we go. Let's move on to cycling. The part where I understand what's happening.
Did you watch?
Okay, I have to admit, I've only caught like highlights because I have been just kind of all over the map lately. It's been a whole thing. But very excited. I mean, the women's racing right now, like, can I just say I'm so excited? I mean, in general, but I'm also so excited because like it kind of seemed like we were heading into a Demi Vollering era, we'll say,
Mm.
where it was just like going to be every race, she'd be the favorite, sort of like in men's, how Pogača is the favorite. And it seems like even that's kind of going away, which is really exciting. So I mean, it's still like, let's be honest, it's a handful of women at the front. But at least it's not just one rider at the front. So you have, Lorena Wiebes won Ghent Wevelgem. You have a note of however you pronounce it. I agree with you. I've written it so many times, but pronouncing it very, very tricky.
Well,
Um,
and is it Zebulgum? Because like the W's are V's and the V's are W's over there.
Yeah, who knows? Apologies to
The
the
whole W.
race. Yeah, there we go. Um, but your note here, her 100th Pro Tour win. Like, man, it's a record breaking. We have Schifrin winning her first 101st, Weebus winning her 100th. I think this just really speaks to the longevity that women can have in sport, which is so, so exciting and so cool. And I mean, if you look at the women's start line in cycling, you literally see women who are half the age of some of the other women in the field, and it's still a knockdown drag out between them, and I love that.
Well, okay, so then did you see the highlights of the finish?
Oh, so good.
Well, it was big, right? Like you talk about a handful, there were 20 women vying for the top spot. Like it was, yeah, it was a great time to sit on the couch again this weekend.
I love that you're finding the good in your recovery here. I'm very proud, very proud. And as we get into today's episode with Kate Veronneau of Zwift, I'm very proud of you for not doing your recovery or like couch time on the weekend, just like carefully, casually pedaling away on Zwift. Although I know you snuck onto the bike maybe for a few minutes last week.
I did. Okay, so you'll be even more proud. And I think, and I want to share this. So my dad is an orthopedic surgeon, and his advice has always been if you do something and it hurts, don't do it again. I would be okay riding the bike, and then I would have pain the next morning. So I'm not riding the bike again. Um, I am walking at 2 miles an hour with my lever movement system on the treadmill. That's right, 2 miles an hour.
Love it. Love that for you.
Yeah. So that's not on Zwift because it is just a pain in the butt with my old treadmill to hook it up to Zwift. But it's a great platform. Let me just be very clear.
Yes, I mean, as far as virtual worlds goes, Zwift has it, has it dialed in. And, I really appreciate everything they've done for women's cycling. I mean, there are other virtual worlds out there that one can cycle and one can run in, but, I think I do believe in supporting companies that are supporting women's cycling, and that is Zwift. Um, there's a reason it's the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Like they have been the title co-sponsor of it for the last since it came back in 2022. I've talked to them so many times about the necessity of always saying Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. It's very annoying. It's it's very long, but it matters because that's why companies put money into races. They put the money into the races to have their name attached to the race. So I will always give them credit where credit is due. And this wouldn't really happen without Kate Veronneau's just relentless dedication to keeping this going. She's the best.
And I got to have a sneak peek of the conversation. She is the best. And she authentically lives that like building of women's cycling. And also to Zwift, they role model, right? And so during the tour and during other events, you can wear the jerseys on Zwift of the women, which is like so exciting. And I think you can also, I think you could get the Canyon bike last year on Zwift. Like I think you could ride on the Canyon and like that, like just aesthetically, like that bike is beautiful. Just yeah. And
Even
Zwift,
virtually.
even virtually. What I love about Zwift, right, is that it's affordable and it's accessible for everybody, right? You can take it wherever you go, right? It's not stuck to your bike or stuck to your computer, right? Like even if you get to a hotel, you can have it on your phone, and even if it's not directly connected, like you can still get that visual. And so Zwift's been a huge part of my training. I used to do you're like, okay, this is why you were good at what you did. I used to do 35K treadmill workouts in the winter on Zwift.
That's
Mhm.
disgusting. Just
It's
back to disgusting. That's horrific.
but music and Zwift, that's all I needed. And I could immerse myself in those intervals and follow along and you know, accessible to like every athlete. And I know that they've got scholarships for professional athletes, but it's such a wonderful platform that really, no matter where you are in your fitness and performance journey, is there for you.
For sure. Yeah. And on that note of the fitness journey, what we highlight in this episode is not just the Tour de France Femmes, but also Zwift Academy, which, has been going on for a really long time, almost 10 years. Actually, I will shout out my husband, Peter, the co-host of the Consummate Athlete podcast, was the coach of the men's winner of Zwift Academy this year, Noah Ramsey. So that was very exciting, a little bittersweet now that he's on alopecia Dinnikirk. So he, has to have the team coach with him. So always, you it's great to see that kind of evolution in a cyclist. But the women's team is actually where Zwift Academy started. It started as a women's only program, and the men were only introduced a couple of years ago. But the fact that they have kind of created this funnel, like not only are they hosting, or co-hosts of the Tour de France Femmes, they're also helping bring riders up into that level. And it's not just who wins Zwift Academy, right? Like the finalists often find teams, and even just like the training and the prep to do Zwift Academy sets you up, I think, to, then go into your next season in pretty good form.
Totally. Oh, and so have you watched I don't know, so it's a YouTube or Netflix series. Have you watched it yet?
Oh, the Zwift Academy one. I admit I've like listened as Peter's watching it.
Okay. It's like on my list of things to watch, like through recovery, but the live sports has been so good. But, I think one day it would be great for us to talk about like all the things that they talk about, like power, watts, VO2, threshold, but in our terms, right?
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah. And, okay, I also am like, I'm flying us to France. Like, we're going to go to France. There's apparently a money tree outside my house. But I'd love to every day, like do a short episode talking about what's there, but also through a sports science lens of like, how do they do this? What's the nutrition? How do they recover? What gave this rider an advantage in this place? Yeah, it was, I stayed up. I did not sleep. I mean, I had a keynote. Raw was snoring. Yeah, that's right. Everybody has a partner that snores sometimes. So this is what I was thinking about before I went to bed last night.
It's like you have a partner that snores. I have a dachshund that sleeps next to me and occasionally starts snoring in my ear. So right there with you. But all right, enough about snoring partners. Let's get into this episode. Interview with Kate Veronneau. She's amazing. Definitely make sure if you're not already following Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, you go follow because that's honestly one of the best ways you can support women's cycling is to be fans of it. So without further ado, enjoy this episode with Kate Veronneau of Zwift. Every time I open up Instagram, you're in like a new place doing something new and wild and just like,
yeah,
how are you doing it? How are you doing? Like, holy moly.
I know. It's awesome. Honestly, I feel like I was like, just, you like when everything in your life kind of led up to where you're currently at feels really good because it feels like nothing comes easy and you kind of got there for a reason. You can kind of track, you have a nice storyline, that leads you to where you are. And it gives you that much more just belief in what you're doing and like kind of belief in the universe that if you keep doing it, things will open up. And it's been just thrilling to be a part of this whole like Watch the Femme and this movement in not just cycling, but women's sports. Like, I come from basketball to see everything going on last night, to see like the Nike ad go in the Super Bowl, and that's what everybody's talking about today. It's like my heart can't take it,
I know. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because I had like this highlighted question of just like, do you think that, cycling is obviously like your and my big, strong passion. Do you think the Femmes do you think Tour de France Femmes, do you think it's starting to finally like sink its hooks in the same way other women's sports are finally, coming around?
Absolutely. Especially because of just everything around last year's race. How good the actual race was, the narrative around it, the drama, the characters, that it wasn't just a moment. It truly is a movement now. And it's something that like, it's birthing all these other storylines and excitement. And I can't tell you how many people just want to talk about this season and all the transfers and everything that's going on. So you're getting that deeper engagement that is required for a movement to really take off, and now you're just building that fan base. The content has been so great around it that it's endless, and there's just so much more room for it right now and so much more attention and coverage that we've kind of hit that flywheel, you know?
100%. Yeah. And I think you just kind of hit on something there with like the personalities are finally starting to become part of it because I think that is historically where cycling in general, and I'm going to say women's cycling in particular, has, I don't even want to say failed. I'm going to say the media has failed them
Absolutely.
because holy shit, the riders are out there doing the most.
Yeah.
And I would say, even cycling media has tried
Yeah.
to some extent. Well, caveat that. But mainstream media for so long kind of just like dismissed women's cycling in particular,
Oh,
especially in North
absolutely.
America, right? Like you had a lot of Lance coverage in the early aughts and then
Yeah.
crickets. And we know that
Yeah.
the flywheel doesn't get going if you
Yeah.
don't create these people that
Mhm.
are the people you want to watch, right?
Mhm. My favorite was this summer. How many like high school friends are like sending me the story of Kristen Faulkner winning the gold, like because it was mainstream, and that's the thing. Now we've hit that mainstream, so
Totally. Ah, my
the
uncle
exposure
texted
is so
me
much
about it.
wider. Yeah, like that was the best when she won. I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I need. This is what I need.
I know. It was so funny. Yeah, my uncle texted me about it. He's like, "Have you heard of this woman?" And I'm like,
I'm like, yeah, I like, yep.
I
It's
can't
so
even
much fun
talk
though.
to you right now.
It's fun to be on the sidelines and watch something blow up,
Totally, totally. I was like sending him links. I'm like, here's the 18 interviews I've done with her over the years where I
And
said
then what
she was
happens
going to
right
be
after
it.
that? What happens right after that? USA Cycling announces a massive, was it a grant? Was it Hellman's grant?
Hellman's
Um,
Grant. Yep.
I mean, and that's the cycle, and now like we're investing, and then, it's
Yep.
like you get results and then you get coverage and then it just continues in this virtuous cycle.
Exactly. Exactly. We want more of the virtuous cycles. Yeah. And I mean, okay, so I wanted to kind of take you back too, and this is both about Zwift Academy, but also Tour de France Femmes.
Yes.
Talk to me about like year one of both of those to where they are now, because I
Oh,
feel like, when I think back to the first conversations you and I had about Tour de France Femmes is like finally happening, and we had a lot of excitement, but like I would say my stoke level, the limit does not exist at this point.
exactly. And that's what it is. It is this idea of like, there is like, the sky is now the limit. With Zwift Academy, I remember that first year, we've talked about it. We had a goal of getting 500 women, signed up because it was just a women's program that first year. It was super groundbreaking, also kind of controversial, definitely making some people uncomfortable, which we all know is a good thing. And when like 1,100 women signed up, it was like, oh my God, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
And to see that program evolve into what it is now, which is an absolute legitimate pathway to the pros, developing riders are now like mapping their season a bit around it so that they can put out their best because it is an authentic shot at a pro contract, which is hard. Really, really hard. One of the hardest things in sport is, to find that pro cycling contract. Um, what I love about it too is that now teams are not just like picking up, like, the winner gets a pro contract, but other teams are paying attention to Zwift Academy finalists. And now it's like something to have on your resume. It's like if you succeeded in making the finals of Zwift Academy, you are clearly pro potential. So it's
Mhm.
opening up other opportunities, which was always the dream of the program, not just to have two winners,
Totally.
but to be a true talent identification program. So I love that that's evolved. I love I just love that I have this like stable of cyclists that I'm following, from the beginning of it and seeing some of them still after it and still, racing in the pro ranks. It's thrilling.
Mhm.
So, and that program, we all know that that was like doing that as a women's program to start is what kicked off Zwift's bigger mission of like, what can we do with our platform and our community to create more opportunity in women's cycling? Like, how can we use our, brand and our product and our community to grow the sport? And that seed that was planted, in 2016
Yeah,
was what made us ready to do a complete, what made us ready to do like a virtual Tour de France in 2020 to respond to the pandemic and do a virtual Tour de France with complete parity because of that commitment that we made to like, we're always going to do what we can on our platform. And then to have that then help us, get on board as, the title sponsor of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, it just blew up now. And
yeah,
now we're 3 years into that race and it's a different game. It's like we truly like, that race has completely revolutionized the pro cycling scene, which is now going to contribute to the, additional support for, development and more participation around the world, like all the great things that happen when women's sports finally get the coverage they deserve. So to
absolutely.
see that happening now, I mean, I have to pinch myself all the time. It's beautiful, and it's also it's not that it's happening, that it's so much better than anybody could have ever imagined,
I
and
think
that's the best.
that's it, right? Not yeah, not just Swift Academy, Tour de France Femmes avec Swift. Like I remember, you know, totally honestly, I remember thinking after year one, like, okay, that was great. And I think you and I even had this conversation totally honestly, where we were like, this is great, but there's a chance that like it's going to end up being this flash in a pan if people don't get on board, you
Mhm.
know? Like even like you can have the greatest event in the entire universe and it still might just not catch that year. And to see, from pushing for making the damn thing happen year one, year two, now it feels like it's not just like I hesitate to say anything that's like is like definite, but like it feels as though it's become as embedded as the Tour de France in current cycling culture. Like I don't feel like it seems like every other time that they've tried to do a women's race where they've, tried, and I put that in quotes,
Yeah,
just a titch. And it just like hasn't quite caught on. Maybe it goes a couple of years and then it kind of fades. This feels like, oh no, this is just actually just part of the cycling landscape now.
absolutely. And not only part of the cycling landscape, but like showing potential to attract new sponsors, to attract new audiences that maybe haven't been paying attention as much, on the men's side. When we see Nike come on board as an official partner of FDJ Suez, that's an indicator. That's what we're looking at. And I think that there is just unlimited potential to this race, to these athletes. It's something that has really, it's fitting so nicely into this whole like greater narrative right now and the momentum, the unstoppable rise of women's sports.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, to that point, yeah, the non-endemic sponsors, like that I think is huge. And the one thing that you kind of alluded to right there with the Nike contract, the one thing I did want to ask is where do you still see any gaps, especially like in the women's cycling space? To me, it seems like the big names, the Vollerings, the New Adamas, they're doing fantastic from a monetary perspective, but we know that there's
Yes.
still a long way to go once you get sort of down the after the first, say, like top 50 riders.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. What we are seeing like this year, with the finally the rollout of a minimum salary for UCI riders. So that second tier, you already had World Tour, but the second tier UCI riders, that's going to make a huge difference because last year there were still women racing the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift that were not like really under a good minimum salary. And that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So the sport is becoming more and more professional. It's not going to happen overnight, but what we've seen in 3 years in terms of salaries and exposure and budgets of teams going up, it's going to be, there's going to be some growing pains. We know
I was
that. That's just,
literally just
when
gonna
you have
say,
this much growth, it's a good thing. We're all going to help, like do what we can to, like there's a place for smaller investors to come in with, smaller teams and development teams. So that, we can start to kind of balance out the support. Because of course, the best ones are going to be making a lot more right now, but that is a good indicator for everyone else.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just going to take time.
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I would say personally, I hope to see a renaissance of growth in North America because I think that's where I see the greatest struggle is like there isn't, I mean, literally Zwift Academy, like at this point is the pathway for a North
Mhm.
American road racer to like have a chance because there just aren't, there's not a domestic circuit that's strong enough. There's not
Yeah,
any domestic teams that can pay enough. And like they're
yeah,
trying, like I talked to them, they're trying their
yeah.
hardest and like can't hit those minimums because in North
It's
America the
really
money
hard
is
right
just
now.
not
Yep.
there. So yeah, it's I think yeah, right now we have like a pretty wide gap that needs to get bridged, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I don't want to like how would I put this? I don't want to like hold women's cycling back in
Yeah,
order to let that like gap close, right?
exactly, exactly.
Um, okay, and have to ask, the little bit of buzz is like everyone wants Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift to get longer.
Mhm.
Personally, I would love to see the Tour de France get shorter. I would love to see the two races be the same lane. What's your hot take there?
Yeah, it's definitely controversial. I once told a French newspaper that the men's race should be shorter when they asked about the women's race being longer. And it was not received very well. No,
You're
but
lucky they let you back in.
in this day and age with modern audiences, the attention span of modern audiences, with so much more competition for eyeballs in sport, for coverage in sport, you would never start a 3 week race today. The Tour de France men's race is 3 weeks because it was started over 100 years ago. And in this day and age, the women's side of the sport has the opportunity to better kind of better hit the market in terms of what is going to be the most viable, sustainable future race. And audiences don't want a 3 week race. There's full stages of the men's race that you just don't even need to watch. And that's just not something that is is gonna work well today. So I am definitely interested in the race growing. I want this to be, the biggest, best race in the world. But in terms of what the that eventual format is going to be. We're going to go year to year and see how it grows and how the pickup of the races, the coverage, the audiences, what the teams and riders want, which is very important. What is sustainable, from a budget perspective, especially with the smaller teams, they need to grow into this. So you don't want to go out so big and so fast that, you leave people behind. And I think we're really excited about the viewership of the race, the coverage of the race in the first couple of years. Something that we will be paying very close attention to as we evolve the race. As we work with ASO to evolve the race. This is ASO's race, that we are the title sponsor of. And we're happy to have some influence, but it's also, it's been so wildly successful. And I'm excited 9 stages this year. That's a huge step up. If we can see different developments every year that show that the race is growing and evolving and, becoming, the best women's cycling spectacle or cycling spectacle of the year, then, we've hit a good formula.
100%. Yeah. And I think what you're also getting at there is Zwift has always been really smart about storytelling and whether, not to sound like an ad for Zwift here, but like whether that is like the world building that you do on the platform. Like you could just have everything on Zwift Island, right? Like, but no, it's
Mhm.
continued to evolve. And again, Zwift Academy, this year you're doing the like slow release of episodes about the
Yes.
finalists, which is, again, really exciting and just such a cool way of like, I think really raising, to your point, actually raising not just the winners, but also raising the other finalists' profiles as well, right?
Yes.
Because like now you're actually making not just those two winners, but you're making all of the finalists like more household names in cycling, which is so helpful for them.
Yes. So we're a video game at the end of the day. So we have to iterate constantly. And that's something that we bring that iterative energy to all the different projects that we work on. And we say, okay, this is good. How can we do it better? And, evolve things in a way that is very intentional, that does take community feedback, media feedback into play, audience feedback. I'm really proud of how with something like Zwift Academy, we really are considerate about how this project evolves every year to grip audiences, to give not just the winner, the best chance of kicking off their career, but those finalists that work so hard to get there, the opportunity to get the airtime and narrative that they deserve. So really proud of how this whole project has evolved and what it is today.
Hmm. Now, for this year's Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, is Watch the Femmes still the tagline? Like, what should we look for this year for Tour de France
Oh,
Femmes
yes.
avec Zwift?
Yes, Watch the Femme is so exciting because it's grown to mean so much more than this call to action to watch the race. Now it truly stands for this movement of like, watch what happens when you invest in women. And so, yes, we'll absolutely be bringing back Watch the Femme and keeping that, as our big movement around our support of women's cycling. But we're inviting now community, industry, media to be a part of this movement. So you'll see some exciting developments in how Watch the Femme comes to life in and around the race with different collaborators, ambassadors, partners. I can't wait to see it roll out this year and what kind of impact it's going to have. It's something that's so close to my heart, and the wider shared, the better.
Oh, I love it. Side note, do you keep those Femmes colored nails year round? Like, I cannot stop looking at them.
It ends up, it started out where I would just do them for the big events like Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift and Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, and then maybe like the route announcement for the next year Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Now it's Tour Down Under, and there's so many more moments throughout the year. It's kind of it's a metaphor for how the sport is growing and how there's no longer this one big moment in the year. There's all these moments. So I keep the energy high. I mean, we're in my bedroom right now, and you see there's like a complete Watch the Femme theme where even
Oh my
like my
gosh.
whole room goes from yellow to orange
This
to pink.
is,
I have a Kasia signed jersey on the wall. I have, it's like I live it. And like I said, how we kicked off this conversation is that like I've never felt so uniquely suited for something in my whole life. And the opportunity to like truly live this message beyond just like being a title sponsor, a brand sponsor, a brand partner, to actually it's something that I can be it and I can exude it, and I
yeah.
think that my enthusiasm is very welcome in this space. And I love it, and I think that if we can help make that contagious in the industry, in the media, that's what I want to do. Like last year at the women's tour, just seeing how many more women in the industry and media came out, and now this is becoming not just the race of the year, it's the place to be, and it's the place where we all connect and we strategize on how to grow the sport together. That's what the women's side of the sport is bringing to the game. And that's something that we haven't really seen on the men's side of the sport. It's much more just naturally kind of competitive. And I'm hanging out at a table with like SRAM and Shimano and Liv and Canyon, and we're all talking about how we do this together. And that's the energy that Zwift, with our Watch the Femme campaign, wants to bring to the future of women's cycling.
Oh my gosh. I could not love this more. Um, I'm gonna wrap it there. Thank you so much, Kate. That was perfect. Oh my gosh. Um,
It's true though, right? Because like it's like we're seeing across all the sports, it's like women bring a different kind of energy. Like seeing that Nike ad like, with all the different like women from different sports. And it's like when we put our voices together, amplifies.
my heart. It's so good.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a good time to be in it. It's a really good time.